Did you guys get to live yet?
We're live now.
Casey, you good? All right, folks. Gather in. Huddle up. See if we got any more late arrivals coming. Because that's what we do. We start late. Make sure if you guys are live linking this out or whatever, get those messages sent out to let everybody know you're going live. We like to welcome everybody out to the Free the Press movie premiere. Woo! You got a live or no? Oh, yeah, turn your ringers off, please. That reminds me. I think I need to do that. Okay, no, I didn't need to do that. I thought about it beforehand. One thing I thought about beforehand, at least. Okay, so welcome to the People's Rights movie premiere for Free the Press. It's a short documentary. For those of you who don't know what People's Rights is, People's Rights is a network. It's a communications network. And our purpose is to help each other defend our individual liberty. So if someone in the network has their rights trespassed or is or needs some help defending their rights, whatever that might be, as long as they haven't done something that's unconstitutional or immoral, we are basically a response team to help them to be able to defend themselves. Because when you're standing alone, you're subject to the whims of other people. If you have neighbors and friends that will back you up and that you know and that you trust, then you have a little more power as a person to defend your rights. Because united we stand, divided we fall. So I'd like to kick this off like we kick off all the People's Rights meetings. Can I get a volunteer for a prayer, please? Yes. You want a mic up over here?
Let's pray.
Yeah, thank you.
Right here? Okay.
Perfect, thank you.
Let's pray. God, we thank you that you are a God of love. You are a God of freedom, a God of justice. And Lord, we would pray that you would fill our hearts up with love toward one another and a courage and willingness to help defend one another's rights together, being unified by our love and unified by your Spirit. And Lord, we ask for your protection. We ask for your protection over Ammon and everybody else who has had their rights violated already. Lord, we pray that you will turn this situation around so that instead of things getting worse, that it'll get better. We know that you're going to do things in your timing. And so we just pray that we will be strengthened by your Spirit and be strengthened by the encouragement that we can give to one another. Glorify your name through everything that we do through this entire process. In Jesus' name, amen.
All right, thank you, Steve. So as I was saying, People's Rights is a network of people who have decided to defend each other's rights, to look out for their neighbor, to love their neighbor as their self. And over the last year and a month now, since the first violation of our rights, where the governor decreed by supreme edict of the Almighty himself, Governor Brad Little, that he has control over your life and has decided that you're essential or non-essential, that you can gather or you can't gather, that he is hereby your supreme dictator. Since then, we've had a lot of issues with the government. Once the government went off the rails, we started standing for our rights. And the first within a couple of weeks, the first People's Rights meeting happened. We met out at a warehouse in Emmett. And since then, we've grown to, I haven't checked the website. Are we over 60,000 yet? We still floating around 50,000? Okay, 50,000 people nationwide who are willing to help each other out and stand for each other's rights. And so now we've got one of the first infractions against a person was when Sarah Brady got arrested. She went to a park with her kids. They took the tape down, which was the city council declared that you couldn't play at the park anymore. There are all these things that nobody has the power to do, basically. And so she got arrested at the playground. I went to the protest to get her extricated at the courthouse, and just coincidentally, People's Rights as a group was serving a petition of grievances to the health director, Jepson of Idaho, Brad Little, and others on the list who had infringed on our rights. And that ended at we went to the arresting officer's home and stood on the sidewalk and gave him a list of those grievances as well. Since then, it's just kind of been like every couple of weeks we make national news with the next person getting arrested for not wearing a mask or trespassing, the new made-up charge for walking on public ground. And Brian has put together a kind of a chronicle of that, including when we went to the Idaho State House and they decided they were going to lock us out and deny representation. So the way this format's going to go is, Brian, did you have anything you wanted to say before the movie?
If you'd like, I'll just give kind of an overview if you want.
Okay, we'll get a quick overview, and then we'll watch the movie, and then we're going to have a panel of several of the people who have been arrested or assaulted or by agents of the government or trespassed, all those things that are just bogus. And we'll have them come up here. We'll have a panel discussion. We'll ask them questions. We'll talk about the actual things that happened, not what made it for 2 seconds in the press where they took, they took 2 seconds and made it a story of where we're the bad guys when we're actually just standing for our rights. And we'll have a forum. I'd ask you guys to write out on the paper that you got, write out some questions you have, and we'll ask and we'll discuss. And then at the end, if you've got any follow-up questions, we'll give you a mic, or you can ask those questions from the floor, and we can discuss that as well. And a couple things I need to bring up for housekeeping. This fine facility right here is donated to us, but we really need to show Regina some appreciation for a place to meet where we can be free people gathered without fear of government intervention and mandates, social distancing and masking us. And yeah, if you, just for everybody who's watching live, there ain't a mask out there. So, and social distancing, I don't think you can get anybody any tighter than they are right now. So two things, okay? So one is the People's Rights Network. The way it works is you activate the system, and you send out a text, and a person called an area assistant, and I'm an area assistant, they're kind of the gatekeeper to activate the system. And the area assistant sends out a text, and that text goes to all the people in the area. Like our area has 350 people in it. And that And those people then come and respond to help out whenever someone's arrested for whatever it might be, or to come and help protest at a judge's house. It's not a top-down organization. It's a network, okay? This isn't Ammon Bundy tells us to do this, Ammon Bundy tells us to do that. It's independent areas serving the needs of the people in their area, and then helping others in other areas when they need a hand as well. So the text goes out, we assess it, or the text comes to us, we assess it, and then after that we put together a plan of action and we decide who needs help and when. And that texting system costs money, and Ammon has put a lot of money into it, and we're gathering a collection for that as well to help keep people's rights text system going. And there was an option where you could go to the website, peoplesrights.org. You could go to the website and put your credit card in and get a normal, get them to process it. Well, not anymore. As usual, the mainstream media got a hold of that, and that credit card processing company denied us there. So we've got a collection in the back for People's Rights text, a collection in the front to show Regina our appreciation for everything we've already used today and all the power we're trying to burn. And with that, I thank you. I'll turn the time over to Brian here, and we'll get along with the preview.
Thank you, Lee Joe. Hi, guys. Such a blessing to have you all here. And this is, just so you know, viewer discretion is definitely advised. If you're a patriot, definitely stick around. If you're not going to like this because it's hardcore, you guys. If it wasn't for what I do, I don't know if I would have ever been violated. And I look at God and I look at this and I realize this truth, that we are all facing until I'm hurt by it, I don't really know. I don't really feel like I have to stand up for it. And everybody that came here today to share their story, I just want you to know I'm extremely grateful for myself to work with you guys. And all of you guys that support us, I'm so grateful. I feel like we're all blessed in this. So what you guys are about to see is a compilation from last year that really portrays the truth of what we're facing in Idaho. This is not just Idaho, but it's happening everywhere, right? Like, this is becoming a huge, huge problem. And we have the power. I'm realizing, not just me because I can run a camera, we all have the power of telling the truth. And that is endless. And I know that all it takes is another witness and another one and another one and another one. And I'm just so grateful that we can all be together. And if you can share this once, I'm going to put this up because we had a lot of fun getting started, let me tell you. But I will put this actual video up. You guys watching here, this will be available so everybody can share it and share the truth. And we will be doing some real live viewings after this. From what I understand, we're going to try to do this repetitively to bring this truth around the world. So it all starts out, you guys, with the one and only first, Sarah Brady. You guys probably remember her, and the ball started rolling from there. Then the Capitol building. Now we don't have due process of law, which is it's just an atrocity that we're going to be dealing with, a cyclical evil of trying to keep us from being able to stand up for the truth. So along with this, we've got statements from those who have faced charges, so you can kind of get an idea of that. It's not just me, it's not just Ammon, it's not just Aaron. We've got a group of people now growing every day with actual charges and how they feel, how it's affecting their spouses. This is like a big deal. So after that, it'll lead into us, and we're going to try to answer questions and help everybody know what to do. So I'm grateful. Thank you for your time. And without further ado, we'll get that going.
Can you put that down so we can see the screen?
Yep, we're doing that right now.
Main light switch is in the far back. Far back. What's this? Oh. if folks, you want to make room for anybody else coming in, slide to the side.
Give everybody another second. Everybody ready? 20th Century Fox, the intro.
Really made me mad because 5 minutes before, 20 minutes before, that cop was like shaking hands with my son, acting like everything's fine, and then they're storming down there and grabbing you out. They ran over some other little kids and, doing that for what?
I didn't realize that Bailey's got knocked over as the ISP had come back up the aisle carrying Brian with extreme force, in my opinion, and he wasn't resisting arrest.
It was almost immediate. Before there even was hardly any conversation, the officers started coming, but it wasn't just the 8. It was like the 15, 20 officers that were in the hallway waiting in back rooms.
One of the really big officers that was coming toward me, he basically just grabbed a hold of my whole body with the left side of his body, and he just pushed me as hard as he could. If I had a chance to speak to the officer that assaulted me in the Lincoln Auditorium of the State House during special session, the first thing I would say to him is, do you have a wife?
To me, it was very obvious that it was, intentional to cause trouble so that the Idaho State Police can come in there and teach the people a lesson and reassert their authority.
If that officer could think about what was done to a woman because she went over and stood in front of him to try to make a statement that she didn't think that what was happening was okay, and that was somebody's wife, even if he's not married, maybe that would make him think twice about what he did. And this is supposed to be my pre-trial. I was given a summons. I still don't get it. I'd like the state of Idaho to dismiss it, but I'm not going to plead guilty because all of their parts of their kids are not guilty. An Ada County judge issued a bench warrant this morning after Bundy did not show up for the beginning of his trial.
Even a jury that the prosecutor picked completely, and we didn't even have any say in it, I am confident that they would acquit us on all charges. But the problem is they won't let us in.
In the Treasure Valley, Eamon Bundy is out of jail. Earlier this week, he was arrested for failure to appear after refusing to wear a mask inside the courthouse.
Did you guys report on the arrests out in front of the courthouse?
Was it the Eamon Bundy thing?
Yeah.
I believe we did.
Do you remember if they actually reported all the details?
Channel 2?
Yeah.
I'd have to double check at the article and see.
These are the rules that the commissioners give the judge when it comes to this building. This is what the judge has to have in order for him to have jurisdiction. And he has to have the commissioner's permission. No entity or group or individual should be allowed to obstruct the steps and entrances of the Ada County Courthouse and administration building for any purpose to impede the ability of the public, employees, and staff to freely and safely enter and exit the building. That's the laws that is on the judge from the commissioners, and they're violating it. Article 1, Section 18. Justice to be freely and speedily administered. Courts of justice shall be open to every person, and a speedy remedy according to every injury of a person, property, or character. These courts, by definition, by the Constitution, and by the law, are supposed to be open. We don't have to ask for permission to not have a mask. No, we don't. They never had authority.
I understand. So we're already so far past common sense that they won't allow people to
to this court and have a fair trial. Pray that you see that our intentions are obviously just. Pray that you see our pleadings, Lord, and I pray that you see all those crying voices that have had to suffer from all this, and they be recognized in the service of the second name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Thank you. Hallelujah.
You like the cooler? You like the cooler in there, boy? You want a blanket? You want a blanket? Do you want a blanket? You want the heater on? Nothing happens until, that's right, till you put on the mask. It's warm on the other side. They've got blankets. They've got food. All you have to do is give in. It's all you gotta do. You want to see the judge? Ain't nothing happening until you comply. Just put on the mask. Just put on the mask. You want to get out of here? You got someone special out there? You got someone special out there waiting on you that maybe wants to hear from you? Do you want to make a phone call? Would you like to call that special someone to let them know that you're okay? Nothing happens until you put on the mask. Are you ready yet? Are you ready yet? Who are you trying to impress? You want to make a phone call? You want to see the judge? None of it's going to happen until you do what I say. And then put on the mask. You comply and nothing happens. You want to use the phone? All you got to do is put on the mask. Just put on the mask. You want to see the judge? Put on the mask. We're going to come in here every 15 minutes. Every 15 minutes we're going to come in here. Make sure you don't get any rest. What are you? Some kind of constitutionalist? All you gotta do is put on the mask. All you gotta do is comply. Just comply. And this all goes away. This all goes away.
To the Ada County Courthouse, which is across the street here, to just support Aaron and Eamon as for their court hearing that day.
and they were supposed to be having a jury trial for their arrest that happened in August at the Capitol for trespassing, and because they were ordered to leave a public meeting because the chairman didn't want them there, and they refused to leave because it was a public meeting. They had the right to be there, so the chairman called the officers and had them arrested and hauled out for trespassing. And when they weren't doing anything, he was just sitting there listening to the meeting. And then anyway, we were here to support them, and there was we got here about 9:30, and there's court date was scheduled. The time was scheduled for 8:30, and when we got here, they were standing outside with a bunch of officers around them, and they wouldn't let them in the building. We asked what was going on, and they says, "Well, we can't. They're not allowed in the building without a mask on." So we just went and visited with other people that were here. There's about 100 people here that had showed up. Many of us have been subpoenaed to testify on their behalf. And about 11, the judge told them that he was issuing a warrant for their arrest for failure to appear. And so a lot of us that were outside got a little upset because they didn't fail to appear. They weren't allowed to appear. They were restrained from appearing because they wouldn't wear a mask. So anyway,
but Scott Johnson was the one that told
Scott Johnson came out, the undersheriff came out and told him he wanted to bring him inside, away from the crowd, so he could arrest him and book him and whatever to Ammon and Aaron. And when they took him inside, some of the group tried to go in with him, which I wasn't involved in, but I was probably 10, 15 feet away observing. And it started a little ruckus, but they finally got him inside and got the doors closed and had him on the floor arresting him. And then Scott Johnson came back out and raised his hand and motioned like this to have the other officers that were on the other side of the patio area to come over. There was about 10 or 12 of them over there. And they just got in the ball and started plowing their way through the crowd, pushing and shoving and stomping and kicking and just brutalizing people on their way through. And we got swept up in the midst of that.
And you were just protecting your wife and your space.
I was as they were advancing towards us, and I looked over to my left, and a friend of ours, Jen, was in. She was screaming, "Let me go! You're hurting my neck! You're hurting my neck!" And I looked over there, and the officer had his right arm around her chin and the crook of his elbow, bent over his right leg thigh as he was dragging her through the crowd. And for what reason, I don't know. And then at that time, I was impacted by the mob of officers, or men in sheriff deputy costumes is what I call them, because they weren't acting like police officers. They were acting like a mob.
Got that right.
And they come plowing through, and that's when I was impacted by them, so it distracted me back to where I was. And I was just attempting to maintain my position because we were just peacefully assembled there to support Ammon and Aaron in their trial. And as I was impacted, the officer in front, come to find out his name was Mulkey, and he impacted me, but the mob was kind of pushing him from behind. And anyway, we kind of interacted a little bit, and I was trying to keep my balance. And I had Parkinson's for 23 years. So my balance isn't too good sometimes. And when they impacted me, we kind of scuffled a little bit. I was trying to block him with my forearms, and then he grabbed my forearms and got me off balance, and I got pushed back into my wife.
I think I've pinpointed the moments that caused them to give us citations. With Casey, it looked like Officer Hale, he's the larger officer with a lot of gel in his hair.
Yeah, I believe that was Sergeant Hale, actually.
Oh, okay.
If I remember correctly.
He's the one who gave me a citation.
Oh, okay.
But it looks like, I don't know if he shoved him on purpose or if he got shoved too, but it looked like Officer Hale was behind Casey, and Casey you can see something push on his back, and so he's like cocked forward like this. If you're charging someone, you don't go like that. Right. But when that happened to him, his right shoulder impacted another officer in the center of his chest, and that seemed to set off that officer. And when Officer Mulkey saw that, he immediately ran over and seized upon Casey. First they shoved him back, and then they pulled him in, and that's when Officer Mulkey pulled him all the way in through the door and slammed him on the ground. And then they dragged him several feet in there and arrested him. And so I was kind of near Casey, and you can I've got in slow motion where I look over and I see that they grabbed Casey. So I tried to get myself forward towards Casey to try to stop them just from attacking my friends. But they were able to shove me back, so I wasn't able to really get very far.
Yeah, so ultimately I've been arrested twice now fighting mask mandates. So both arrests have stemmed from fighting the misdemeanor, I guess you would say, crime that they wanted to attach to wearing a mask. So they wanted to be able to cite you with a misdemeanor for not wearing a mask. And so I fought that at Central District Health, and then I fought that at Diana Lacciondo's house. And so the first one was one of the large Central District Health protests, and that was on December 4th. And I wasn't arrested at that point in time, but they have arrested me for that protest. In addition to that, they have arrested me for the protest at Diana Lacciondo's, which occurred on December 8th. So I have 2 arrests stemming from issues coming out of Central District Health, the regional health districts, that stem from them wanting to mandate and force a misdemeanor upon us, and mine and other people's fight back against that and pushing back against that. So all First Amendment issues, all in light of exercising our rights and protesting their infringement upon our rights. And so both arrests occurred at the Capitol as I was going to either participate in government or fight particular legislation that I also thought was unconstitutional. And, so they had chosen to attempt to exclude me from certain processes, as, yourself and other individuals have been excluded from the legislative process. And then they have decided to attach charges to either keep us out of that process or distract us or silence us or, whatever the issue is. But to attempt to make us feel the weight of the oppression, that the state wants to press down on us.
The injustices are just piling on top of each other. I can't comply with madness. I can't comply with tyranny and nonsense. And the thing is that when we first saw the COVID stuff coming out a year ago, a lot of it seemed to not make sense to me, And here we are a year later, and I feel 100% confirmed that that is correct. The COVID stuff didn't make sense. The restrictions didn't make sense. We now know that the computer modeling that the original restrictions were based on, that computer modeling was completely flawed or false or whatever you want to call it. And yet we've gone forward with this madness that our government won't stop. So we don't have a balance of 3 branches of government right now. We were pushed out of government on every single level, which is completely a crime. And that's why I did what I did, which was a lot of protesting that got me arrested. And so now here we are at the court, and we don't have due process.
I'm here for court, which I'm being denied entry because I cannot wear a mask. I'll freak out. I'm claustrophobic, but either way, justice being denied. I've been charged with 3 different charges. First one is trespassing. That's what this court date is for. Trespassing at CDH during a public hearing. Then, since they didn't want to allow me there, then it's disturbing the peace at one of the commissioner's houses, which we thought she was broadcasting from there. And then failure to appear, because although I did their Zoom if every time they deny due process, they expect a crowd like this, maybe they'll stop denying it.
Had an interesting day. I been arrested twice today, and I'm either completely stupid and crazy, or we have a huge problem, because I know that it's not just Idaho. I know that it's all over, and I don't want to, drag this on too long, but basically, many of you know in August I went to a special legislative session at the Capitol building in Idaho, where the governor was trying to make himself immune from the COVID decisions and all the terrible things he's done to Idaho. The governor's received, we know, of $8.1 billion. He put the state of Idaho under martial law, under Code 46601, which basically says that all the government of Idaho is under the governor. And then he did exactly what the federal government wanted him to do, and he's received $8.1 billion, and he has made his own proclamation saying that he gets to spend that money at his pleasure. And if you don't believe me, go to his Order 2020-07, Governor Little, State of Idaho, Order 2020-07, where he says that he's putting together this committee that serve at the pleasure of the governor, and the governor's office is going to spend all the coronavirus funds that they receive from the federal government, which is $8.1 billion that we know of. He suspended the rest of the Idaho government, the legislatures, and he's basically running amok here in Idaho. And so in August, this was months ago, this was 8+ months ago, he tried to pass a bill that would make himself immune from any of his COVID decisions, and we went, and the governor and the Speaker of the House targeted me, and originally thought it was the pro temp as well in the Senate, but we kind of realized with all the discovery and all the letters and emails and facts and stuff that we've got through discovery, we now know that it was the Speaker of the House and the governor. And they targeted me and had me arrested in August twice and trespassed me from the Capitol building. They did that so that I wouldn't, influence the legislatures to end the emergency orders and the martial law that the governor has put the state of Idaho in, so that he can continue to receive billions of dollars and have the government under his control. And that's what this is all about. So, then I began to fight my case. Many of you know they denied us trial for months and months and months, clear from August 2020 to March 15th of 2021. They wouldn't give us a trial because they said jury trials have been suspended in Idaho. Imagine that, jury trials have been suspended in Idaho. Then, because we kept pushing and insisting that we get a trial, finally, 7 months later, they give us, actually more than that, but yeah, about 7 months later, they give us a trial date on March 15th, and we go to show up at the trial, and they arrest us for not coming in without a mask. We were down there, they wouldn't let us in, and they gave a warrant for failure to appear for me and myself and Aaron, one other guy who's going through this with me. So we go to the courthouse, we try to get in, they will not let us in, they block us from coming in, and then they file a warrant for our arrest for failure to appear to our own trial. So anyway, that happened. We also been, fighting and litigating, and we found that there was a bunch of corruption in what happened when they arrested me, of course. And we found clearly that the Director of Administration didn't have authority. He was acting basically as a pawn for the governor. But he didn't have authority to trespass us in the Senate gallery. So, to make a long story short, we exposed that, uncovered it, we filed a motion, and we had that charge dismissed. So now I only had one trespassing charge. Well, so then today, I had a meeting over there by the Capitol building, and I thought, well, now that 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 trespassing charge has been dismissed, and that was the only written authority that they claimed. And also we knew that Bedke, the Speaker of the House, didn't have authority. So I'm going to go into the Capitol building and I'm going to find out what authority they have. Like, I'm going to test it. So I went in there, and ultimately the ISP surrounded me, and I asked them, by what authority are you doing this? And they couldn't answer me. They wouldn't answer me. And they put handcuffs on me and arrested me, dragged me out of the Capitol building, took me down to Ada County. The entire time I'm asking, you need to show me authority. You don't have proper authority. You need to show me the authority in which you are trespassing me for. And they wouldn't and couldn't. So then I sat in the cop car at the jail in the little Sallyport area. I sat in there quite a while, and I could tell that they were doing something, going back and forth. And then on their computer in the front seat, I noticed that the director of administration, which is Keith Reynolds, I noticed that the letter that he trespassed us with showed up, or popped up on the screen. And then so then when they came, I asked them, well, what authority? And they said, the authority under the director of administration, that's what we're arresting you for. Well, that case had been dismissed. That is the very case that had been dismissed because of, they didn't have authority in the first place, and the court the prosecutors had to recognize that, and they dismissed the case. And so he's telling me that he's getting authority to arrest me now. This is what the ISP officers, they're getting authority to arrest me now because of a case that's been dismissed. And so, I was like, wait a minute, that isn't right. So they booked me and did all the things, and I bailed out, got a ride, went right back to the Capitol building, and sat there. I went up on the Senate side and sat in the Senate, right by the Senate entrances, just sat there. And here comes Idaho State Police Blake Higley, who is the governor's personal security sergeant. And he comes over there and he basically says, round two, huh? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm just wanting to know what authority you have to trespass me on. And he says, he couldn't give it to me. And then he went over and he started talking on the phone for a little while. And I'm just sitting there. And then he comes back over and I said, so did you find out what authority you're trying to trespass me on? Because he said, at this point, he said I was detained. And he says, I don't need authority. That's what he says. I don't have to have authority, I think were his exact words. I don't have to have authority. So you're just going to trespass me, put me in handcuffs, drag me out of the Capitol building during a session. During the session and during normal business hours, it was fully open, you're going to drag me out of the Capitol building again in handcuffs for the second time in one day, and you never had authority and you couldn't quote authority. So then I said, well, does a person have a right to protest in the Capitol building? And he says, yeah. I said, so why are you arresting me? And then he says, well, we're arresting you for trespassing. And I said, well, what? Then by whose authority? Because it's very clear in Idaho law that you have to have the proper authority from either the Speaker of the House, the pro tem for the Senate, or the administration, depending on where you're at in the Capitol building. And so I'm asking, what authority? And he just said he couldn't answer me. He wouldn't answer me. The only answer he gave me when it comes to authority is that he didn't need it.
Lights up back there. And do you want to set these lights up again or not?
Yeah.
Okay, so people not seen in the film. Eva wasn't seen at the film, arrested for trespassing at Central District Health. Yvonne was arrested at the big protest where everybody went to Diana Lasciando's house. She got in without a mask and was trespassed in a public meeting where they were supposed to be having an open meeting for discussion. Never happens with these guys anymore. And then who else has been arrested and isn't here yet, or isn't here today? And you guys saw Aaron? Okay.
Oh, he's not in the film, right?
Yeah, Aaron's not in the film.
Yvonne?
Yeah, Yvonne St. Cyr.
Eva got arrested twice.
Jill got arrested.
Oh, Jill, yeah.
Yeah.
Eva got arrested twice.
Yeah, arrested. Yeah, Eva got charges at Southwest District Health and Central District Health. So 2 times. Woo.
And at least 2 or 3 times for failure to appear.
Yes, and now since all this has happened, and by dictate of the Idaho Supreme Court, jury trials have been ended. Now you have a failure to appear, and if you don't do Zoom, which Eva doesn't do Zoom, and if you don't wear a mask, and Eva doesn't wear a mask, and most of our members, you can't go to this place of justice. You only go to the place of justice to have your rights removed. Before we get much further, though, I would like to acknowledge some of the people who made this made this event happen. We have a bunch of people from Utah. Do you guys from Utah raise your hands? They had an idea that we needed to put out an event that wasn't the mainstream media's event, where we could actually get our own view out there, and we could say what needed to be said, and not get that 2-second clip where Hammond was arrested because he didn't show up at court, you know. So they had this idea to have a public event where we could all get together, and then Brian, the deadline came up on Brian, and he started doing some editing and some taping, and we came out with a pretty good piece that demonstrates, and yet, yay, Brian. And that is only a fraction of the amount of problems we have. You know, it's just amazing how far the government has gone towards anarchy and away from a constitutional representative republic. So I'd like to invite the panel members who have been arrested and infringed to come up to the front, please. David, and who else is here? Casey. And Casey, come on up. And Garth, come on up. And what we're going to do, we're going to start working our way through some questions. And Brian, come on down. Aaron,
discussion first, and then we'll do questions.
Hey, Aaron's here. That's one of the long-traveled ones.
Right.
Okay. Well, which is further, Utah or you?
About the same, really.
Depends on where you come from in Utah.
Anybody want any questions?
All right. Yeah. If you guys could write some questions, we'll work on that. Brian, are you good? Are you live streaming?
Yep.
Still?
I'm just gonna bring this down a bit.
Okay. So, when His Highness the Governor passed his whatever it was and took control of all the government, and we started to fight against it, one of the things that he did was have the Attorney General declare that you could enforce trespassing laws on public property the same as it was written for private property. And then he said we can amend or change or whatever. He just dictated that we could change the open meeting laws. So the open meeting laws only needed one person in the actual meeting, and you didn't have to actually have anybody attend that meeting, so it's no longer open, and it went on and on like that. Okay, they just took every little thing and made a niche to make it so that people who wanted to have to claim and use and defend their rights couldn't do that anymore. So, come on up on this side, Casey.
Okay, Casey.
Need a hand up? All right. Okay, so and you saw some of their stories on there, and so with the new magic trespassing law and the new magic law from the governor declaring martial law, now we have all these things that you can do that are illegal and don't even actually have a victim and call them a crime. So with that, I'll ask, let's start with, let's just kind of go chronological here for a minute, and we'll start with, okay, so you saw Brian getting arrested, and I just like some of his input, some of his thoughts on why he decided to go and stand for his rights and to exercise the freedom of the press.
My name's Brian. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Brian.
Hi. I don't mean to be that guy. So, I got to tell you guys something from my heart that God showed me. I didn't know what I was doing, or I should say well, that's true too. I didn't know why what I was doing was right, except for what I was being told in the moment. And anybody out there that feels like you don't have any understanding of the law, I can attest, I can testify to God's wisdom showing us that the spirit of the law exists for a reason. Because we are not supposed to be all, members of the bar to do what this country was designed to do. And honestly, I believe the world is designed to do. God gave us freedom. So I was acting in spirit of the law, and I knew that they were wrong. You guys probably saw the clip where I was upstairs after the day that the glass was broken, and we protested and got our rightful access to the gallery. The next day, they started telling me that I couldn't stand like the other members of the press, so that I could get a good vantage point on all of our representatives. And that I knew immediately was wrong. And I didn't know why necessarily, but I knew something was up. First they start making us not be able to have our bags, we couldn't have water. Okay, whatever, that's trivial. But then they started stepping on my toes, and this is my work, so I took it personally. And I started recognizing that they kept using this credential word. And even without knowing anything about the law, I knew that the right of speech and press was inherent. It's ours. It's our right to witness. It's our right to hold our government accountable. I didn't need anything to do that. And so they were painting this picture that I could, you know how you just know. You can feel in your heart that it's wrong, and I didn't know why. So I said I was going to handle it through the proper channels and leave it at that. I had no idea the rest of the day was going to go south. We get into the Lincoln Auditorium, and they start telling us we can't sit at the same table we were at all day the day before. And some would say, which I've seen in the comments, why don't you just go sit in the gallery and stop causing problems? Well, here's the bottom line. When you see what the media is doing, especially the prior day, lying about how the glass was broken, trying to say we're an angry mob, and all of their cute little adjectives that they use, yeah, that's right, psychology major, I know what they're doing. And all of you guys probably know too, once again, spirit of the heart. You know the truth when they're lying and using certain words. Well, I knew it was my duty to get the details that were possible. I didn't care if it was an itch in the nose or what Cheney was eating for lunch. I knew it was going to be important, and they were standing in the way of that. And I knew that that was another thing. So I just had to, Misty and I, we were both in this, talking to each other, whether or not we should go back over there. And I tried to consider whether or not it was important, and she was kind of looking to me in the moment, like, should we do it? And all of a sudden, I knew that her and I were supposed to go over there. It was just right. We couldn't do anything else but show them that that was not okay. And because I couldn't be subscribing to that going forward. There was no other option. And I knew it wasn't about me. That was the biggest thing that was really hard to see, that this has been going on for a long time, guys. After this, I learned, and I won't go too far into it because I know you just asked me why I did it, but I learned that these little rules they've been putting in place have been abridging this right for a long time. And I'm glad we figured it out. That's all I have to say on that.
Okay, thanks, Brian. The credentialing process at the Idaho State House goes through the NPR, basically. Goes through the BSU communications folks who are the hard left-leaning, and they're not going to give you credentials if they think you're not going to report their way. So It's all a process that's, like you said, for a long time they've been putting their hands around it and squeezing it and just hoping at some point its head would pop off and it would die. Okay, next, chronologically, we're going to have to go with Aaron, so Brian's arrested, and in the video you see Brian's arrested, he's out, Ammon comes down, okay? Ammon comes and sits in his seat, all right? It's just like that. Okay, we're just going to switch places. And Ammon will tell you that he was standing up for the rights of Brian and the free press. And the protest is on. So, and the building is still open. Okay, the building's open till 7, all right, when this all goes down. So, in come another round of thugs to decide that we will be the governor's puppet, and we will go and do what the governor wants us to do, and we're going to go arrest Ammon Bundy. And they traipse on down, and they start that process. They get Ammon, they start cuffing Ammon up, and from there, I don't know what happened, so I'm going to turn it over to the first-hand eyewitness right here and find out why and what he was doing at the time.
My name is Aaron Von Schmidt. I don't know if you guys really, I wasn't in here when you guys were watching the show, so earlier on, we were witnessing what was occurring throughout that day before, and the next day was pretty chaotic, and witnessing the denied entry into the House Gallery and some violations that are occurring there, and the presence of officers the next day was this tremendous change in atmosphere and change of attitude from the officers the day before. As we were in that room when Brian was getting hauled out, as we recorded multiple times through that process, as we intended to give testimony, we drove a long ways to do so, and we're denied that opportunity, and my wife and I, and on multiple occasions, along with many others, were denied the opportunity to give their testimony about what they were seeing happening around the state of Idaho. People being denied access to important needs that they needed, medical medicines and groceries, and denied good services that they should have ability to access. And witnessing these things happening at the Capitol also, where people aren't able to redress their grievances, and how they're being told that basically to shut up, they can't give testimony, or we've had enough testimony, or we're going to move it to another room, and nobody knows where they're going or what they're doing, and constantly moving and shuffling everyone around to where they get lost in the shuffle and not finding the room, or able to participate, or segregating people into rooms and putting them in front of a monitor that doesn't work to participate by a video. And this is what we had witnessed through this process, And when Brian was arrested, as they were hauling him up and, injuring people, including women and children, and shoving my wife and me out of the way as we were videotaping what was going on. This is what we were, witnessing happening right in our state capitol. This is my home state where I grew up. It's where I raised a family. I've, been very involved with the communities everywhere I lived in Idaho, including raising thousands of dollars for donations for many different fundraisers, and watching this state at a very low, dark level. And but moving forward, I guess we'll just get forward kind of where it was left off, where Ammon's in the room, and I wasn't in there. My wife and I were actually outside, and we noticed all this, strange, huge presence of ISP police cars wrapped around the Capitol Island area, and just got a really sick feeling, and felt there was something that we had to, something really wrong, and felt that we needed to see what it was. We felt impressed to go back in there to still give our testimony, and so we headed down back to the Lincoln Room. We came across the heavy presence of SWAT team, and marching down this Capitol steps to the lower floor of the Capitol where the Lincoln Auditorium room is. And they're all geared up in helmets and face shields and all these things, and along with other officers that look like they're military officers that very heavily trained. And this is what we had walked into. This is along with all kinds of ISP officers. And I continued walking, and we ended up at the bottom, and I continued into the room, walking past the officers as we were allowed to. And as they came to a marching stop, and we continued past them, and I headed into the room to give my testimony and see what's going on, because I'm in Idaho. I pay my taxes in Idaho. I have the right to give my testimony, right to participate in due process. And I was allowed entry into this room. And coming into the room, I immediately started videotaping, seeing what was going on. There was around 35 officers lining the walkways inside the room of the Lincoln Room, and surrounding which looked to be, Ammon or somebody at the press box with other people that were there, and not knowing just who was all there because there was so many officers I couldn't quite see. But I just started videotaping, with my phone and recording and trying to. I figured that's the safest thing that I could do, that maybe as a deterrent, because I noticed that there was no body cams on any of the ISP officers in that room. But the Boise police officers, they were marching down the steps. There were about 50 feet from that door that went to a stop. They all had body cams on. All of them did. And so why did they stop so far from that door? I knew that there was something wrong. What was going on? Why is there no video? Why are there no cameras on these officers in this room? 35 officers in a room with just a few people. And I was extremely concerned, because this is not normal. This is not normal at all. And this whole process where there's peaceful people there from all over the state of Idaho that went there to participate, give testimony, and be a part of what Idaho is supposed to be great about, about being part of a community and being able to exercise your rights. That's what Idaho is supposed to be about. That's what this country is supposed to be about. And so, after I was in there for maybe, I don't know if I was even in there 2 minutes, maybe a minute and a half. I walked in after people started leaving, and I wasn't the only one in there, but I was right around, and you might have saw in the video, but I was inside the chairs, and so there's nowhere to go except for left or right. And after 2 or 3 attempts of asking the officers, do you guys have body cams, or who's recording, or I'm concerned about the safety of the people in the room, no answer. Just approached immediately from the people from behind me and in front of me, and my phone was knocked out of my hands, and I was arrested. And then from there, Ammon was arrested. And I was taken to the center of the room in the hallway. And I witnessed a woman named Jill being pulled in by the back of her neck and thrown up against the back of the chairs of the Lincoln Auditorium room. And she was thrown so hard it made a big clunk, a big bang against the chairs with her body. This big man throwing this little woman up against the back of the chairs. And watching what this was going on and pleading with him to leave her alone. She's just scared. So at that point, I witnessed the officers, going up against the front doors of the entrance to that room and making it very hard for people to see what was happening in there. And later, looking at the videos, I could see that was the case. From the outside, that they appeared to be standing in front of the window so people couldn't see him. And but the video that I had, my phone and my personal items was an officer took and eventually gave them to my wife outside that room into the hallway. And in that room, there's no signs that say no trespassing. There's no signs that say that you have to be out at a certain time. These were during the operation hours of the Capitol. There's nothing to indicate that there's any type of a change or closing or different circumstances on the outside of the building or on those doors of that room. But they decided they were going to close that room within that time of the business hours of the Capitol. And they did. And they closed us in that room. And they eventually gave my items to my wife, and coming to find out later that all the video that I had recorded was deleted.
That's terrible.
So, and I know it was confirmed that was the case because when they went to delete it, they screenshot the video that they deleted.
Wow.
Yeah. So, going forward at that point, we were, of course, taking in, it's this crazy thing that happened is we were taken out through the back area and through away from the public. And so Ammon went out first, I believe. And then after he was out, I don't know just where he went. We get to see him a whole lot until we got to the elevator, but we eventually get to the elevator, and there's a reporter that comes down with some secret access, apparently, because he was the same reporter that was in the Lincoln Auditorium room, but he somehow had access to the back part of the hallway, and he went in there to where Ammon was, and there was several officers in the elevator. We were all crammed in the elevator with these officers. All of us were crammed in. I mean, like the subway train to China. And anyways, he came up, he took a picture of Ammon, and he was videotaping him, and it says, "Was it worth it, Ammon? Was it worth it?" As he recorded him. And then as we made our way down to where or up, I guess probably as we were going through a lower level, up to the area to leave, to go to the police cars, Ammon left in front of us at some point, and we were being held outside just under an awning of the Capitol, and then we still had no idea where we were arrested or what was going on. I had no idea what was going on. I wasn't told that I was going to be trespassed, and when I was in the room, actually, because I wasn't in that beginning part of the what was going on. So Jill asked the officer, one of the officers, looked like a senior officer, says, "So why am I being arrested?" And in his frustration, he says, "For trespassing and probably for resisting." And this is the gal that was pulled in by her neck into the room and charged with trespassing. And right after that, I said to him, I said to the officer, I said, this is about your rights too. It's about everyone's rights. People are here to stand up for what's right. And then this lightning or this thunder went ba-boom, ba-boom, just out of nowhere. It was a crystal, beautiful, beautiful day, sunny day. And no, I didn't see a cloud in the sky. It was this beautiful sunny day. And then the officer he just turned white. And he just stood there for a minute, you know. So it's just, I know that I just feel everything that I felt through this, me being in that room videotaping, it wasn't anything other than my concern for the safety of another person, another human. You know, it doesn't matter who it was, if it was a gang of people or thugs, if it was a mob of people doing these kinds of things and that kind of, those actions that we were watching them unroll in front of our eyes, what would people do? Would they just walk away and just pretend it didn't happen? Is that what this is about? This is about the right thing. What's the right thing for people to do? It's for people to say this is wrong. And I guess we can move forward to, you know, some of this whole process that went from there. You know, of course, amazing thing is we went through the booking processes. They have a jail underneath the court. Was in there for not a long time, and it was released, and an amazing amount of people came and gave their support that were there to, it was just humbling that people that cared about me and my wife, and, you know, we didn't know anybody here, you know, we just came down to give our testimony. And so that's how we learned made new friends and, you know, people that really care about their community, and it's absolutely incredible.
God turns that which is evil for good. God turns that which is evil for good every time.
Yeah. So, you know, of course, through that process, and you know, the judge consolidated Ammon's case and my case, and decided that we needed to litigate this together. And which is interesting because, you know, it wasn't just us that were arrested. Joe was arrested. Brian was arrested. And but they chose that we needed to be consolidated together in our cases. So through the whole process, you know, I've never had a crime on my record, you know. I've always been, I mean, I get some infractions from speeding sometimes, but I haven't had those for years. So, you know, I consider myself a very good citizen of society, and done, I feel like, amazing things for the community. So it doesn't have to be that you have done something wrong to be targeted. You know, what seems to be happening is when political things are working against you, that you end up getting into this, and appears to be the case this whole process that we're witnessing. And you know, witnessing other individuals be arrested and stuff for exercising rights, they're going through the same issues, you know, becoming victims to this. And you know, I asked before, I reached out to the legislature, in a few ways, not very hard, I guess. I kind of hope that they would kind of stand up to this. But I do reach out to them again in this, you know, whatever it means this goes through as far as media, that they make a stand for what's right in the Senate. And, you know, it'd be pretty amazing if the governor was willing to say, hey, I screwed up, but I really don't think he's going to do that. So I think that for some reason that money's more important to him than the state of Idaho or the people of Idaho.
That's right. You get him in the boat.
So, you know, the invitation's still there if he wants to change that, but that's what I feel. So, but anyways, you know, of course, what happened is going through that process, we went to the court, and in hopes that we'd be able to participate, you know, like what the Idaho State Constitution says, we have the right to do that, participate in trial, and a public trial in person, and without prejudice. And we were denied the entry by men with guns. We're not allowed into the building. As we were prepared for trial, the witnesses were there. There was even subpoenaed to be there, and we were all denied to be participants of this trial. And instead, there was people injured, Some of them are witnesses, some of them are the public. And through that whole process, we witnessed a juror being turned away and told she couldn't participate without a mask. And I find it interesting that jurors are being turned away for those kinds of things. And what kind of a jury will we have? And what kind of questions do these jurors get? Which, from my understanding, these questions are pretty loose to make anyone to not want to be a juror. And so what happens when there's no jurors to testify or to be part of the court process? Will we have jurors anymore? So is this eventually going to be just all on court TV? Is that what we're going to have? So, what we're witnessing through this is that the so-called live video is not live. Your link as a participant, as a defendant, is a different speed than what the public appears to be seeing. And so that delay time, what happens in that delay time, or what can happen in that delay time? Are we able to confirm that somebody said something when they're behind a mask? Are we able to confirm what they're feeling and witnessing what they're going through with their facial expressions not being exposed? Are we able to determine if that person's talking at all or they're on mute? So these are problems that we have to worry about and go through. We're just trying to defend ourselves. So, as innocent people. We went and got arrested, and we were pulled back into that court with no mask. So it's interesting how we can see other people in that court without masks besides ourselves. But we were denied entry into that court unless we wore a mask. And the other thing that's really strange is that those masks that they require to wear, it says non-medical on the box.
Made in China?
And they're from China. And there's no precautions. There's nothing that says about directions, about ages or anything. So these people that put these masks on in an unsterile box of masks that are open to the environment of anyone touching them, have no instructions. They have no idea of the risk. And that was mentioned already to the court, and they didn't want to address it, but they want to prescribe it. So anyhow, I'm sorry I'm going back and forth a little bit, but getting arrested and going through that and witnessing other people in the courthouse without masks and watching people who are working in there, not even alone without masks, is obviously that it's biased. And going through the process of being taken down through the elevator down to the lower level of the courthouse where the jail is, not knowing what's going to happen, not knowing if we're going to get hurt, not knowing if something's going to be made up or some false narrative is going to happen. I don't know what to think. I just went to the Capitol to testify. So this is the process that I get to go through, and along with other individuals who are just exercising their First Amendment to go and redress their grievances, to state their opinion or their thoughts, their concerns. Going and arriving at the jail, or going on the way to the jail, talking to the officer, seemed like he's probably a family man, a nice man, appeared to me. And then arriving at the jail on Barrister in Boise. And, pulling into the garage, and he leaves to go get the conditions of me going into the jail and coming back with the news of what that I must do. He's stating that I have to go into a cold box and I have to take my coat off. And we were already cold because we went to the courthouse for denied entry for about 3 hours in the morning. This is a cold morning in Boise. And so I was already cold as it was. And then the police car, the heat didn't work very good in the back. And so, arriving at the jail and him telling me that I'm going to take my coat off, take my overshirt off, and my shoes off, my socks off, and leave me with just my pants and my undershirt, and say I have to go into a concrete cell, and that's where I need to go. That's where I have to stay in this cold room. And I told him, I said, how was that right? It seems like, to me, that sounds like torture. Why would you ever want to do that? And I said, are you comfortable with leaving me in there like that? And I said, are you comfortable with, leaving me with these individuals willing to do that? And he was concerned about himself. And I could tell he was concerned. I think that he knew it was wrong himself too. And, but ultimately that's what happened. It's taken in and forced through booking process, my fingerprints, my picture, and forced into this concrete cell with no bed, no blanket, no pillow, no toilet paper. All it is a concrete room with lights on, bright lights on, with air flowing the entire time. And a stainless steel toilet, and looked like a little sink at the top of it. That's all there was in the entire room. The door, there was no bars on the entrance of the cell. There was a door with a food slot and a window with a curtain on the outside. So nobody knew who was in that cell when they would come through, unless they pull that curtain back to see who might be inside there. Who's a new person in the cell, I suspect, because that's what happened throughout the whole night, is that somebody would come and look in there. Maybe some mockery would happen and stuff like that outside the door along with that. But there I was, inside this room. It was cold, and told that I had to go through a process of wear a mask. I have to wear a mask just for a little bit, just to get down below where nobody else needs to wear masks with all the other prisoners. But just for a little bit, when we're passing through this area, I have to wear a mask. And if I do that, then I can get some warm clothes, in a bed to sleep on, some food, and throughout the night, there's a shift change, and there was a night crew that came through, and the night crew was really, really bad. They would come in and tell me I can't make any phone calls. They said, you can't make any calls, you're not going to see a judge. You don't get to see a judge. You have to wear a mask, and you have to strip down, and to go through this process, or you're staying in here. And I just figured, well, I guess I wanted to see who can last out the longest. So that's where I had to stay, because I couldn't violate my conscience. And through this process of them coming and banging on the door every 15 minutes through the night, and through that whole process of banging on the door and telling me that I have to do things, not let me sleep. Remember, the lights were on all day and all night, the whole time I was in there. And so I'd lay on this little concrete bed, and that's all there was. It was cold in there. It was cold enough to where it was not cold enough to see my breath, but cold enough to almost see my breath at times. And it seemed to get really cold at times, and other times it wasn't as cold. And they'd come in and they'd open the door just out of nowhere, and two officers or whatever would just stand there, threatening stance. Are you ready yet? Are you going to comply? Are you going to go down and get the booking? Are you going to wear a mask? And even though different pleadings and stuff, they didn't seem to care. They didn't care about me making a phone call. They didn't care about what I was going through. They knew I was cold. I would tell them over and over I was cold. And different officers would come through, and they would know I was cold. They'd see me shivering through the window, and they would still pass me by, or they'd say, "Are you okay?" And then I tell them I'm cold, and they'd slam the door. As I watched the video camera roll at the top with the light flashing, they watched me the whole time, watching me go through this. And not knowing what time it was, not knowing what was going on out there, other than hearing them laugh, and then telling each other how they're going to go bang on the door. So
thought I was dramatizing that scene.
Yeah. Yeah, so, at some point in the, later on, I don't know just what time it was, but it appeared to be late morning. There was at some point you get to where you don't know, you just kind of get to where you startle every time someone makes a noise, and I still do, but when you get so tired, you start to just kind of just care, and it got to be that point, and I knew at some point there's going to be a shift change again, and maybe it'll be somebody different, because there's this crew that was really bad that night that was the worst, but I felt maybe the morning crew wouldn't be as bad, so I wanted to see. I was hoping for the best, and then somebody came in, and at some point it just was a different person, and he was actually willing to help, and he did. He helped me. He went and got a phone, allowed me to call my wife and let her know what was going on, and he actually gave me some sandals to put on my feet, and just to put something on my feet was amazing how much warms you up. And they were just flip-flop sandal kind of things, but there was something. And the door was open a lot more, so it was warming up in there more, as the door was opened. And but being able to communicate with my wife and let her know that that it was okay, and I know she was worried by then, and so that was huge for me, but I started seeing strange changes. Scott Johnson came in, and he had came in once before, I guess, too, but tell me that I had to go below, or maybe twice before, tell me I had to go below. I had to do these things, I had to fall through certain things, and there's no way around it, and but just a different approach. He came up and was telling me that there's people outside he's getting all these emails and stuff, and he didn't like it. So but I got a phone, and people seemed to know that I was there. All of a sudden, it wanted to allow me out of the jail. This cold thing, with a cold room, whatever it is, and it seemed like that they wanted to get us out of there too. And and so they were telling me at some point this process that I get to see a judge now. But they said I could see the judge, but I have to watch him in my own cell. And I can watch him in the other cell, other area. That's what I was told with these other prisoners. But I had to wear a mask out there if I did that. And I said, well, I'm not going to wear a mask. And he said, well, you can watch him in your cell at some point later on. They finally said I could watch him in my cell. But I had to wear a mask to watch him on Zoom in my cell. So eventually these two officers came in, man and a woman, that brought a cell phone in, and they wouldn't allow Ammon and me, this is my co-defendant, they wouldn't allow us to participate together, even though they consolidated our cases. So we couldn't hear each other, what was going on or what was being said. We had no idea, So they separated us away from us to be able to be part of this, which is, I think, very wrong. And but anyways, this man and woman brought the cell phone in and put it in the food slot, brought in a chair and had me sit in it right in front of the food slot to participate into this video of a man that says he's a judge, that I can't see his lips moving. He's behind a mask. But I can hear a sound of what he says I get to do or what I don't get to do. I'm not given any paperwork about what's being done. I'm just hearing what someone's saying is happening that I have to go through. So I have no way to visually confirm he's the one even saying this and what's happening. But this is the process that I got to go through. I got to stay in here, or I got to do whatever they tell me I have to do to leave. So stay in there again, and I can maybe hold out another night or two if I had to, I suppose. But it seemed to me like they were getting more and more upset at me being in there. So until people started making calls and emails and showing their presence and showing their concerns. But what about all these other people that are there, that have been there? The over 40,000 cases that are backed up in the state of Idaho. What about their families? What about the people who have been emailing and asking for help because their loved one or their family or somebody's been stuck in there? They have not been able to have a jury trial. So this is something, these are things I read about in history books that happened in other countries, not in my own home state. So I don't know if you wanted to say anything. Yeah? Okay. Well, I don't think you're welcome. Yeah.
I'm anticlimactic. See, after that. A couple other details. So, when they go to arrest Brian, we talked about they brought Jill in. They, physically yanked her in, and all she was doing was walking by, stuck her camera up, I think, for a second, and that's it. That's enough to make the thugs mad and make them abuse you. But when Brian was arrested, one of our other area assistants had her kids in the, her kids were in the crowd, and she'd left to go get some lunch. Left the kids on their own. Okay, well, not on their own, there was somebody watching them. But along comes, the blue, whatever you would call blue ISIS, the blue shirt mafia, the puppets of the governor. Okay, along they come, and they're going to show us. They're going to be forceful. And they took one of her daughters, shoves her out of the way, like she's a little rag doll. And that little girl today still gets the, shuts down as soon as she sees a police officer. And that area assistant doesn't come to the Capitol anymore because she can't take her kids with her, and because her kids are traumatized at the thought of going in there. They're traumatized by having police officers near them because we become victims of thugs and tyrants. Now, I still want to hear something about how the family's been affected since this has happened. You got nothing to say? Yeah, I would like to see, when these people do their things, there's consequences to the whole family. And I think we need to hear, all right, I would like to hear about how the kids are doing and what's going on with the family, since now Aaron's down here every couple whatever, or he's on, trying to seek justice, and in the meantime, he's not spending time with his family. He's stuck with, the Manweilers of the world decided, and the Idaho Supreme Court deciding that they will tell us what to do without any legislative process, just purely by dictate and mandate, with no input, no public hearing, no anything. Just, we're going to take this pen, we're going to tell you to do this. That is hereby the law decreed by the Idaho Supreme Court. So.
Okay, so I'm a horrible speaker, but I'll do my best. So I guess I'll just talk about this last time. So we live up in North Idaho, so every time we've had to come down here, we have to drive about 8 hours. So when we came down on March 15th for court, we felt like we were prepared. I mean, you're never fully prepared. I don't even know if lawyers are ever fully prepared. Maybe they are, but we're not lawyers, so we were a little bit nervous, but we felt like we're as prepared as we could be, and we had all of our evidence and all of the work that we've done the past six months, and so we're talking to our kids, and they kind of know what's been going on, but they're just terrified that he's going to get arrested, and so he has to tell them, yeah, there's a chance I'll get arrested, because I'm not gonna comply, I'm not gonna wear a mask, and I want my justice in person, and so they were really, they were pretty upset. They started crying, and they were afraid that they didn't know when they were going to see him again, and that sort of thing, and so we drive the 8 hours, and we arrive at the courthouse at, I think it was, 7:30 or something, pretty early, and of course they don't let us in, and we're there for about 3 hours, and thinking, well, maybe there's a chance they will let us in. Maybe there's a chance. So we have all of our evidence and stuff, and have high hopes that we're going to be let in. At least I did. I had a little bit of a glimmer of hope that they might let him in, because there was people there to support, and I thought, well, maybe they'll find in their hearts to let us in. And at some point, we kind of realized they're never going to let us in, and sooner or later, Scott Johnson came down and informed these guys that they had warrants for their arrest. And so he gave me a hug, and knowing like, well, I'm going to go in jail. I don't know how long they're going to hold me. They said they had a $10,000 bond, which is unheard of for a crime that's a $1,000 fine. They have a $10,000 bond. So knowing that they're targeted, there's a lot of thoughts that go through your head, like, what are they going to do to them? We already know what they've done to Ammon in the past, so now what are they going to do to both of them? They got Ammon. I saw them kind of push Ammon against the wall, and they're always pretty rough with him, because they don't like him very much, because he stands up for liberty, and they don't like that. So I saw him do that, and then we're kind of standing a little bit far away, and I saw Aaron start walking towards the police with his hands up, and even though he had his hands up, the officer still grabbed him and kind of shoved him, which even when you were somewhat surrendering, they still felt the need to do that. And so seeing that as being his wife, seeing them treat him like that kind of affects you. And I'll be honest, like I have like PTSD from a couple of these things that we've been dealing with, and at first I thought that they pulled him and threw him in a wheelchair because I saw him being wheeled away. And it turns out they just kind of put him in there, but it looked to me like they kind of like threw him. And so I was telling people, like, yeah, they grabbed him and threw him in a wheelchair, but that wasn't what happened. But they definitely grabbed him and pulled him. And so after that, they didn't want to be bailed out, which is hard enough. They wanted to see a judge, that's their right. But it is hard because you have family calling you and telling you, why aren't you bailing them out? Don't you care? Why aren't you bailing them out? Why won't you bail them out? And having to explain to them the law and why they want to see a judge because that's their right, and that they don't want anybody to bail them out. So that night I went and stayed at a friend's house because I didn't want to be alone, so I did that. And I didn't know quite what to do. I kind of wanted to go to the jail and just do a sit-in or something, kind of in protest about what happened, but I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna go there by myself. That's gonna work out well. So I went to my friend's house and I decided, okay, I'll just call the jail a couple times and just make sure they're okay, make sure they're not torturing them. So I called 2 times, and then they tell me that they've been booked and processed and that they're in a regular cell. So then I call them back again. I'm like, somehow I just don't believe that. So I call them back again and I say, so they're in a regular cell, they're not in a holding cell? Because the holding cells are the cooler cells. Yeah, they're in a regular cell. So okay, well, maybe I'll get some sleep tonight. So I went to sleep. Hadn't gotten a phone call all day, from 11 a.m. to whenever I went to bed, like 11 p.m. But I just, I was like, well, maybe there's a possibility they're telling the truth. So I'm just going to go to sleep and figure out what to do tomorrow. I'll go down there tomorrow. So the next morning, I think it was like 8:30 or 9 a.m., I finally got a call from him. And he said, no. He's shaking. I hear him shaking on the other end of the phone, and he said, no, I haven't been booked. They haven't done any of that. And then he told me what they had done, and that he was cold, and they'd kept him in there all day, and they told him he wasn't going to see a judge unless he wore a mask. And I said, well, did they ever force a mask on you, like when you're in the wheelchair or anything? And he said, no. So I said, oh, okay, so they just want you to submit to it then, because they had never forced one on your face, obviously. So because he would not submit to a mask, he wasn't going to see a judge. They finally gave him a phone call, but they hadn't gave him anything to eat or drink yet. And so, ordinarily, hearing that about someone that you love is hard, and you get pretty mad and upset, and you want to do something about it. And so I, decided to go down to the jail, and the whole way there, I was like, don't yell, don't get mad, don't yell, like even up the stairs. And so I walk in and ask for them somebody to come speak to me. Someone said they spoke with an officer who was actually giving them answers. So I asked for that person, and they wouldn't send them up. So I think when I got there was 3 of us there, and so we started just making signs, and I didn't really know how many people were going to show up, but we figured that we'd do what we could, and then more people started showing up. Once we got to about 10, then Scott Johnson came out, and he said, "There's an you guys can't protest here. There's an ordinance that says, there's a county ordinance that says that you can't protest here." And we say, well, it's not law. We're exercising our First Amendment. We can do that here if we want. And then I think someone said, well, if you don't want us to protest, then stop torturing stop torturing people in there. Stop torturing these men. So then Scott Johnson says, let me make you a deal. He says, just turn your music down and stop harassing our employees. Well, what do you mean harassing your employees? Telling them what's going on in there? Is that harassing them? And we told them what was going on in there. And he said, oh, I'm well aware. I have 500 emails from all across the nation in my inbox right now. And we said, well, that's good. They're going to keep coming, until you stop doing what you're doing. And so I just wanted to share how powerful it was, from the first time that he was arrested at the Capitol. We didn't know anybody. We were on the way on a trip, a 3,000-mile trip to the other side of the country. And we just decided we're going to go there because there's some bills we want to testify against. And we said, we're just going to stay for Monday. We're just going to testify. We're just going to spend a couple hours there. We're going to testify, and then we're just going to go. It didn't work out that way. So we didn't know anybody. We knew, in fact, we told everybody we weren't even going to go. We just decided at last minute. There were people there from up north that we know, we're friends with, and we didn't even know they were going to be there. So we saw them there. So we didn't know anybody, and everybody just stepping up to just be there for me while he was going through that, because I've never been arrested. He's never been arrested, and so I don't know what to do. I'm all new at it. So having those people there with me at the jail and everything was amazing, and it really showed what people's rights is about and how important it is, even for the person that's not going through what they're going through, for the family. And then this last time, everybody's showing up. I think at some point there was around 50 people there, and anyway, that means a lot. And I know that one of the times I was on the phone with him, and he was getting kind of well, I don't know how much longer I can deal with this, what they're doing. And I told him, I just want you to know that there's 50 people out here waiting for you. And he said, okay, I can go through it a little longer. So I just wanted to share that how powerful it is.
So that same morning, I went down to the went down to the jail at 6 a.m, and because I couldn't sleep. It was 5 o'clock and I was still stirring in my head, and I said, okay, I'm gonna get up. You told me to. I went. So I was there by myself. I got a little video of me trying to question these people. Nothing was open when I was there, and This feller, crossed his court date on top of an arrest, procedure and a jail time thing. You got to schedule your court dates better so that we can be concentrating on people who are in the jail.
What day was that? What day would you like?
So I've got a video on here that said where a guy is sitting there saying, "I have they came out of booking. No, they're not in. Oh, they shouldn't have had to take their clothes off or anything. This is and just lie. I caught the lieutenant coming out of one door at shift change and lie. So, anyways, we're going to work back a little bit chronologically from the arrest, go back to mask mandates, and let David talk a little bit about the good times and interesting fun that we've had trying to defend our rights to our bodily freedom, and let and all our attempts to make sure that there were no mask mandates, and mask mandates aren't about a mask. Okay, it's about authority and control. Masks, whatever. Okay, so yeah, we know a mask. For 103 years, there's been research on masks. Okay, since the flu pandemic, there's been research on masks, and it's proven a mask does not work against a virus. It's helpful against a bacteria, a very large particle compared to a virus. If the government had ever been serious about this, we would all have N95, charcoal, full face respirators, and that's what they would have issued to everyone instead of, here's this magic rag. I hope it wards the evil spirits off. Right. So, with that, I will, David's an area assistant too, and he has been, I think the best character at the protests. The one that brings the levity up, while you're having your rights removed, at least David is there to entertain you.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I appreciate that introduction, and I have to admit it is kind of difficult to follow Aaron, and it's when he brings that down, and I've mentioned to him before how soft-spoken he is, that it really does touch a whole different, I guess you'd say, demographic than what I'm accustomed to, because I am accustomed to kind of being loud and laughing and, trying to see the light side of things. But, one thing that I did want to start with, and I am going to have to borrow this from Chris Ann Hall for a moment, but I know you guys have been seated for a long time, so if you guys would indulge me for one moment, would everyone in the room just please stand up, and I will stand with you, because I gotta admit, sometimes that blood flow a little bit. And then I'd like you, I don't remember if she did this piece or not, but she probably did, but just take a moment, just kind of look around the room, just kind of get an idea who your neighbors are and who's here. Okay, and then what I would like is everyone in this room that is not part of the FBI, the ATF, DHS, NSA, or the CIA, I would like all of you that are not a federal agent to please sit down. Wow, everyone's still standing. Well, you're in the right, but no, anyhow. So, good to see all you federal agents in here with us tonight. So, that was kind of a way that she kept things lighthearted, and she separated the room with the We the People this last summer. So, thanks for that, Chris Ann Hall. So, anyhow, the whole coronavirus thing for me just really supercharged my involvement. I had watched some of the Bundy Ranch stuff, and I know some people here were very closely involved with that, but I'd watched some of that from a distance, and so I was a non-participant or kind of an online, I wouldn't even say a keyboard warrior yet at that point. I was just someone that was following the news and following kind of the independent news, and I came across that story. And I had been following enough about the Obama administration and what they were doing with our borders and everything that it got me supercharged, that when I saw that, I was like, oh my goodness, I felt at that point, I was like, we've got a revolution coming. Like, you know, and I wasn't totally involved in constitutional circles or liberty circles, living my life, working, have family, the whole bit, you know, but I was following libertarian or conservative Republican news sources. Well, so that kind of got it in my mind of that scenario, and I followed that pretty close. I did not follow the whole court point afterwards, and you know, that's kind of sad to say, but you know, my life just went on. Like, I didn't actually know about the time that Ammon and his family had spent in jail. Like, I may have seen a headline from time to time, and that is really unfortunate. And I think the one thing that all of us will come across is that we all had these arrests, and there was a little bit of news here or there. You know, not everyone can snap their fingers like Ammon and get national news, but everyone had their arrests, and then everyone forgets, because the court process is not exciting. I mean, it's boring, it's mundane. Most people are just law-abiding citizens, as I was myself. I hadn't had something, I think it was 25 years I'd had a driving infraction that I had to deal with the police and everything. So, I mean, it had been forever since I had been involved in that. But I'll try to bring it a little bit, you know, closer to this particular incident, is that I got involved with People's Rights and a multitude of other liberty groups in the area, just trying to figure out what was going on and how we could do something to push back. And so we attempted to start going to these Central District Health events, protests. It really started as meetings. Like, we were attempting to go to the meetings, and I know that the Petersons and a handful of other people in here were there consistently. I would say that we probably tried to attend 24 Central District Health meetings, sometimes with a little bit of success, sometimes with less success. The one other thing I was thinking about when these panelists were talking is I was actually with each of these panelists. I mean, not right next to them, but I was with every panelist here when they were arrested. I think I've been with every individual that was arrested except for when Eva was arrested out in Canyon County. And then when Yvonne was arrested at Central District Health, I was at Diana Lachiando's house. Hi, Diana. Anyhow, so, I mean, if we get a punch card for being present at people's arrests, I think that, you know, my punch card is up. So it was time that they're like, hey, guess what you get? No, not a free cup of coffee or a free donut from Krispy Kreme this morning, but you get arrested. So my punch card was up, and it was my turn. And we didn't go on our property. And if you go back and watch the news on that, it is really the fake news, you know, the opposite of the lies of the free the press that we're looking at here tonight. And so what they had said was that an angry mob was banging on her door, and you know, there's national news stories of women doing the nightly news saying, and in Idaho, an angry mob, you know, rushed the county commissioner's house. And you have to look it up. I don't remember verbatim, but it'll come out in the court process, which probably nobody except for the people in this room will hear about or care about or watch, but it's coming, you know. So anyhow, so my point is that we were 3 people standing on a public sidewalk making noise, protesting Central District Health because of the level of force that had begun to build at Central District Health. And so those of you that are local here may remember the news on that, is they built that police force segment by segment, squad car by squad car, by SWAT team, by sniper team. And as that thing got to a point and they built those barricades far beyond what they even have at the courthouse right now, we knew that the open meeting laws that no longer pertain to any meetings in the state of Idaho, because of the Attorney General Lawrence Wasden and the Governor Brad Little believing that they can simply strike and edit. And that's why we're saying don't believe any of this stuff with these gun laws that he's making, these edicts and these, you know, whatever, these mandates. They mean nothing. He can just simply strike it away in a moment. We need some legislation which gives us a little bit of something. But anyhow, so he's striking these open meeting laws. We can't get into the meetings. The police forces are not letting us into public buildings, as everyone here can attest to. And so we started thinking up a creative way for our voices to be heard, because we could no longer go in. They wouldn't even allow us to speak in the meetings. Everything had to be submitted ahead of time, and we could sit in the room with a mask on and listen to them literally steal our freedoms. And as we're talking about here, steal our rights. And so we would sit there voiceless while they took our rights away. And it got to the point to where they wanted to not only take our rights away, but now they wanted to start making us the criminals if we didn't do what they were mandating. And so it really, I guess, just kind of came to a head for me when they wanted to start charging us with a misdemeanor, and they wanted to arrest us, and they wanted to fine us, and they wanted to imprison us for decisions that we were making personally on, our own health freedom. And so I wanted to push back. So really what we wanted to do was we wanted to make some noise in front of Diana Laciano's house, and our hopes were that maybe we could hear that through this Zoom broadcast that they would put out. Like, hey, maybe we can hear our protests. Like, maybe we can be loud enough that people that are watching, because I remember in North Idaho, one of the meetings, like someone had got in and they had started scribbling on the screen. And we're like, oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. They got into that meeting and they're scribbling on the screen, and none of the CDH people knew what to do with this. So we're like, well, we could do something. I saw a meeting that Casey did in Northern Idaho where he was beating on the door saying, let us in. And you could hear the echo through the video recording. And I was like, that is so awesome. You can just hear the boom. I was like, boom, 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 boom. I was like, we could do that, but something different, because we're out on her public sidewalk. So we were able to make enough noise to not only be heard through the meeting, but we were able to make enough noise that Diana Laciando freaked out, and then Mayor McLean freaked out, and Chief Lee freaked out. And I'll have to prove this through documents through the discovery process, but I believe, and I do want to show a strategy weakness here on Lee, I believe he did dedicate almost all, if not all, of his police force to Central District Health. So when we were near City Hall and the police headquarters protesting, he did not have adequate resources to respond to a 3-person protest on the sidewalk making noise in the city of Boise, Idaho. So, because he put all of his eggs into one basket, and I know you're from Portland, Chief Lee, I know, I understand it. You don't understand how we do things here in Boise. But because you're from Portland and the new ones that she's imported are from, the coast on California, I understand you guys just don't get it yet. You don't understand. But these are strategic things that you might have to, come to understand. But so we did this little protest over there and made a little bit of noise, and it shut the meeting down and made national news because, mainly because of Diana Laciano's response. Not because of our protest so much, but, and our intention was not for her to have emotional response. Our intention was for us to be able to hear that throughout. I mean, if we could stop that mandate, awesome. But, our belief and our chances, we didn't necessarily know if we would be successful or not successful. We just, we knew we could be loud, or I believe we could be loud. So then that goes on to, another protest as well. And I should say that People's Rights had joined with Health Freedom Idaho, had joined with Idaho Freedom Foundation, John Birch Society, Liberty Lab. I mean, there's a multitude, Centers for Self-Governance, Real Idaho 3%. I mean, I guess they weren't necessarily as visible, in some of this, but all of these different liberty-minded groups were working together to go ahead and put some type of pushback on the government oppression. And so really, if you go back and look at this stuff and you look at the ones where the snipers are up on the roof and there's those, huge walls of police force, that was a result of us looking for creative ways for our voices to be heard. And so ultimately, it leads me to believe, and the other panelists to believe, is that really what our government doesn't want, what they do not want, is they don't want to hear from you. And that's the reality. They don't want to hear from every person in this room, because every person in this room is standing in the way of $1 billion coming from some mystery world banking system that, I don't know exactly how they do the whole digitization or whatever, but every one of you, I mean, I know it's not necessarily that yet, but I mean, I guess it could be, but we are all standing in the way of $1 billion. And from the government's perspective, if they're looking at you or $1 billion and your rights, you mean nothing. And every one of us can attest to that, because they treat us like we are standing in front of $1 billion for them to put in their pocket. And when you think about that, that's just the reality of it. It's us versus the money. And so, we're trying to find a way to navigate through that. We're trying to find a way to show enough people that we believe that our rights are worth more than $1 billion because we believe in freedom, we believe in liberty, we believe in this country, and we believe in each other. And, you know, I'm tired of being sold out. So.
So since the Lasciando protest, he's also been charged with battery, am I wrong, for the previous week's protest, wherein no battery took place. However, and the video shows no battery took place, but that doesn't prevent us from making charges and telling the media that, hey, these people are getting charged for battery, just because why not? Because they can. And so, have you got a failure to appear now too?
No,
not
yet.
All right. So the others who were arrested at the Lasciano, from, Eva was arrested before this, and Robert was arrested before this. And they both ended up going to the, Eva's had a failure to appear because Zoom is a kangaroo court. Okay? 3 failure to appear?
So I believe 3 failure to appear.
Okay, 3 failure to appear. Okay, so she goes to the court. She says, let me in. And the court says, no. Here, you can Zoom. She looks at it. That's not court. I can tell it's not court. It looks just like a phone or a pad. It's not court. Okay, so, and since she knows that's not court, we don't participate in kangaroo court. And Susan, same thing. This is not court. This is an electronic device with glitches and problems. And, before I know it, I'll have a cat meme on my face, or that maybe you could go in there with a mask filter and pretend, record yourself with the mask filter on. Yeah, look, I got a mask. Look at my phone. It says I do. Okay. So we have a bunch of failure to appears and a bunch of other people arrested as part of the Lasciando, before Lasciando, as part of the Central District Health and Southwest District Health protest, just working on defending our rights, claiming, using, defending, and not giving them to the government just because somebody's pen got hungry for rights. Okay, now we've had Ammon and Aaron going to court, getting arrested for not wearing masks. And meantime, you saw in the video, Casey, the violent offender that he is,
criminal.
Look at that. That is the face of a wanton criminal. Okay? If you want to see violence, it's right there, folks. Right there. You don't know. You don't know what's inside. A man who's, well, let's not disclose his age, but he's a lot older than me. Okay, he could be my dad. So I fear him now. Now that he's a felon, not a felon. Now that he's accused of being a felon and convicted by the court of the media. So, and there are multiple lies going on. But so they're getting arrested for the mask, for not wearing masks, and now Casey's getting abused. Garth sees the abuse, tries to come to Casey's aid, and I'm going to let them talk about why they were there and how they feel about what's going on with their cases as well. And have you guys got a failure to appear yet? No. Okay. No, not yet. Okay. Well, it's a coming. So, all right. I'll let and Margie is Casey's wife, and I'd like her to talk a little bit about how much fun and games she's been having during this whole thing as well. Well, I got to tell you, the first thing I want to say is how proud I am of the People's Rights group that was there on the 15th of March to support Aaron and Eamon. Because as much as this was forced on us, no one responded violently to the attack that we were under. And I just praise God that we had the patience. Martin Luther would have been proud of us, brothers and sisters. But beyond that, I did submit to a Zoom court on my preliminary hearing.
Tell them about your rest first.
My what?
Your rest.
Oh.
That little thing.
That little thing, yeah. Well, okay. But when the undersheriff beckoned the officers from the other side of the patio to come assist, a video that I seen shows them coming through in a line going through to get there. But when I saw what I saw with my naked eyes was a group of about 10 or 12 officers in a ball coming through that group of not protesters, but peacefully assembled supporters, just knocking people and pushing and shoving and when I heard Jan scream, I looked over to the direction of her voice and I saw her under the elbow officer with her neck in his elbow, dragging her through the crowd by his neck, and she's screaming, "Let me go, you're hurting my neck, you're hurting my neck." And before I could respond to that, then I was impacted by I call them a mob of officers, but they weren't really officers because they weren't performing their duty that they swore to uphold the Constitution and protect the people of Idaho from a tyrannical government. They were not performing their duty. They were just a mob of men dressed in Ada County Sheriff's Office, their uniforms. Anyway, just as I saw Jan's situation, I was impacted by the group of officers. And I was just standing my ground, trying to retain my position because I was there peacefully assembled, and I wasn't doing anything wrong. And my wife was behind me, and we were probably half this distance to the wall, the barrier that was behind us. And when I started getting pushed backwards, my wife put her arms on my shoulder blades and says, "Stop, you're pushing me into the wall." And the officer in front of me had me by my forearms and had a leverage advantage. So somehow, God, I don't know how, but he was a pretty big guy. God gave me the strength to break his wrist, and then I grabbed his forearms, and was able to maintain my balance and get my feet under me and hold my balance. And for some reason, he stopped pushing. We stood there for a minute, and I let go of his arms, and then the battery started again. And again, somehow in the middle of all of it, I turned to see how my wife was doing. She was right up against the curtain, and on the other side of the curtain, I couldn't tell what it was, if she was going to fall down steps or what. So I turned around again, and somehow I got a hold of his left arm with both of my hands, and he had his left arm up against his chest like this, with my hands on his forearm. And for some reason, whenever I got my hands on his forearms, he seemed to just calm down and stop what he was doing. I had both of my hands on his left forearm, and he looked at me and he says, "Let go of my arm." And I thought, well, last time I let go of you, you started battering me again. So I just and he said, "Let go of my arm." And his right arm was free, and he wasn't doing anything with it. And I said, well, maybe I'll just hang on for a while here. See what happens. When the third time he says, "Let go of my arm," I thought, well, he's getting a little irritated. I better let go. So I turned loose and I put my arms in the air in a submissive position. And then other officers around started battering me and shoving me, pulling me by my coat and shirt or whatever. The next thing I knew, I was inside the courthouse on the floor. And I'm not even sure how I got there because I just kind of must have spaced that out. But when they threw me on the floor, I hit my elbow, my right elbow kind of hard, and it kind of woke me up, and I realized where I was, and I thought, well, I'm just gonna lay here, I'm not gonna move until somebody tells me to, because I didn't want to get any more abuse. And pretty soon, must have been 30, 40 seconds, seems like an awful long time, an officer or somebody came up and tapped me on my shoulder and said, "You okay?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "Can you move your legs?" And I go, "Yeah." He says, "Well, put your feet together." So I put my feet together. He said, "Oh, sorry." And he says, "Can you bring your feet up to your butt?" And I said, "Yeah." So I was kind of laying on my side, and I did that. And then him and another officer grabbed me by my shoulders and lifted me up into a sitting position, and stood me up and walked me over to the wall, put my forehead on the wall, moved my feet back, and oh no, before that, after they got me in the sitting position on the floor, they asked me to put one of my arms behind my back, which I did, and then they cuffed that wrist and took the other one and cuffed it, and then they stood me up and walked me to the wall and put me against the wall so they could shackle me. Got shackles on me and took me out to a squad car and put me in the car and transported me over to the jail, and which was about 3-minute drive, and got out over there and went into to book me. And then they gave me a piece of paper that was supposed to have been a warrant, but it wasn't, because it didn't have any first appearance clause on it, and no judge's signature, and my name was spelled wrong, and there's just a lot of things wrong with that piece of paper. But that's what they told me was I had 2 warrants for battery on an officer and a misdemeanor, 2 felonies for battery on an officer and a misdemeanor for obstructing and resisting. Didn't have a resisting, but obstructing an officer in the performance of his duties, which they weren't performing their duties that they swore to. They were abusing us instead of protecting our rights. So anyway, got booked. Then they took me in. I had to change into prison clothes, and then the officer, he says, "The people at the desk would really appreciate if you'd wear a mask just while you're booking. Once you get through the booking process, you can take the mask off." And I thought, well, is that a battle I really want to fight right now? And I thought, well, I don't know. Ammon and Aaron, I don't know if that's a battle they should pick either, And I kind of questioned in my mind. I thought it over, and I thought, just for booking, I can do it just for booking. So unfortunately, I submitted to a mask long enough to get booked, and my picture taken. No, then he took it off so they could take my picture and stuff. Yeah, now they don't want to see my face. Yeah. So anyway, I got booked, and then from here on, my conscience really started to bother me. They took me they ended up putting me on the medical wing because I have injury-induced Parkinson's from a traumatic brain injury I had in '98, and I have to have medication, so they put me on the medical wing. Got to the medical wing, they put me in a cell, 2 steel platforms, one on each side of the room for beds, and a sink and a shower. And they left me there for maybe 15 minutes. And I was tired, so I was laying on one of the platforms, and they brought me a mattress, 2 sheets, and 2 blankets. I have a bottom sheet, top sheet, and a blanket, 2 blankets. And so I made up my bed and used one of the blankets to keep warm and one of them for a pillow, and I laid down to sleep. And then they brought me dinner about, they took my medication when I was being booked. They took all my personal belongings and stuff, like they usually do. And I told when I got to the medical wing, I told them I was due for medication because I hadn't, what time was it when I got there? I don't know, about 3? Oh yeah, I took a medication at 12:30, and I told them I was going to be due for another one about 5 because I take them out about 4.5 to 5 hours. I'd had one at 12:30. So then they said, okay. Well, 5:30, 6 o'clock came. I could look out my cell window and I could see the clock over in the officer's station, so I always knew what time it was. And when I start shaking, then I know I need a med. And I called him, got the officer's attention, told him I needed my medication. He went and told the nurse, and the nurse come back and says,
well, I need to see the bottle before you can have your medication. Make sure I'm giving you the right thing. And I'm supposed to have it 5 times a day. And so I called my wife and I said, honey, could you bring the bottle in so they need to see the bottle before they let me have my medication, even though it's self-administered. So thereon, I was just kind of winging it and praying that Lord give me strength to get through this. And she, about 9 o'clock came around, and I thought, man, I'm really hurting. I need medication pretty bad. So I called, asked for a phone, called my wife again. She said, oh, I've been so busy taking care of things because we co-parent grandchildren and stuff, and she's got a lot of responsibilities. She's a hard-working woman. She takes good care of me too. Bless her little soul. But anyway, she said, I'll bring it right now. So she brought it in. She had it there by 10 o'clock, and by 11:30 they finally gave me another med. So, but anyway, when I take my meds, I usually drink a lot of water with it, and then I drink water afterwards because then it acts like a diuretic. So I'm back and forth to the restroom several times. But fortunately, I had a restroom in my cell. And so I was laying on, trying to sleep, and laying there about 1:30. The officer woke me up, and he brought in a 3-inch vinyl-covered foam pad to go under my mattress that they'd given me, which is just a little thin pad thing. And I thought, well, that's really nice. I appreciate that. And he helped me put it under my mattress and left the room, and I laid down. Boy, that was a lot more comfortable. And then about an hour and a half later, he comes back again. He says, the sheriff's concerned you're going to fall out of your bed and hit your head, or you hurt yourself. So I brought you another mattress to put beside your bed. And I thought, this is unbelievable. Why are they being so nice to me? And then I thought, oh, it's because I wore that mask probably. And then my conscience really started burning me. I should send these I wish I could send these mattresses to Aaron and Eamon. But anyway, about 5 o'clock in the morning they served breakfast, and then it was a pretty, not too bad a breakfast. It was a couple pancakes, butter and syrup, and a bowl of cold cereal with a little carton of milk, which filled me up for breakfast. And during the night when my wife brought my medication in, she brought me some apples, because apples really help me get through when I'm having a hard time. And I asked for an apple, and they brought me one. So anyway, I got through the morning, and about noon they told me that I had to get ready for Zoom court at 1 or 1:30. And about 1 o'clock, the IT tech came in to the officer brought an IT tech into my room and asked me if I'd put a mask on for this Zoom court thing. And I said, what is a Zoom court? What do I need a mask for? So she sat up and stayed away from me, and I stayed away from her, and got the Zoom thing going, and the judge was wearing a mask. And I'm going, it appeared to be in a courtroom because there's paneled walls and the flags behind him and stuff. But I couldn't really tell what judge it was because I couldn't see his face because he had a mask on. I'm thinking in my head, you know how to ask this judge if COVID had gone viral, because I didn't know digital. Is COVID gone digital? I didn't know you could catch it over a Zoom chat. But I thought better of saying that, and I thought I'd better just shut my mouth and behave myself. So anyway, we got through that and got rescheduled for a preliminary. That was my first appearance. After my warrant, you're supposed to get your first appearance, and then I was scheduled for my preliminary hearing on the 29th, right? Yeah.
First, you talk about your bail. Remember what you said?
Oh yeah, and during my preliminary hearing, my initial appearance, the prosecuting attorney read me my charges and told me what they incurred, what could be the maximum penalty. Could be 5 years and $1,000 or $5,000. Some large amount of money for each felony, plus so many years and whatever for the misdemeanor. And she said they could pile those on top of each other, so you could be in jail for 10 to 15 years.
And anyway, then she said, looked at the judge. She says, he's a part of that people's rights group that Eamon and Aaron are heads of. He needs the same bail as they have for $10,000. And I thought, the judge looked over at me and he says, I don't want you to talk about your case because I don't want you to incriminate yourself, but please tell me what you would think would be a fair bail and why. So I told him that my wife and I have close ties, a lot of family ties here in the valley, and we're co-parenting our grandchildren with their parents, and we share an apartment together. And we've been coming to Boise from Napa all year long in 2020 for 10 legislature sessions and testifying committee meetings concerning bills and stuff. And it's not a problem for me to come to Boise to attend my court dates, and I promised that I would sure be there. And he said, okay. And he looked down and wrote some things down, and then he says, released on ROR, released on honor recognizance. And I thanked him, and I said, thank you for your mercy, Judge. And he said, goodbye. And that was it. So then on the 29th, we show up at the Ada County Courthouse. It was supposed to have an 8:30 in the morning trial time, or preliminary hearing time, I guess that's what it was, yeah. And we get there about 8:15, and we go up to the officers on the porch that won't let us in because we want to have a mask, and says, well, we can do Zoom. And I said, that'd be all right, but can I sit on that barrier right there? And he said, oh, I'll get you a chair. So he went in, got a chair, and set it over in the corner, kind of out of the wind, but it was like 33 degrees that morning. It wasn't quite freezing, but it was snowing. Just not really snowing hard, but spitting snowing out once in a while. But it was that cold wind. So we sat there, and he says, well, your trial's been changed till 9:30 because you've been released. He said that you do the inmates first at 8:30 and then the rest of you at 9:30. And I said, oh, okay, can you give me some paperwork on that? So he went into the office and got the paperwork and brought it out, so we had it. So we decided to go sit back in the car. Brian happened to be there with us that morning. And we went and sat back in the car to keep warm until trial time. And Brian came and visited with us and stuff, and actually interviewed me while we were sitting in the car, which was kind of fun. Kind of enjoyed that, being able to visit kind of somebody to vent to, you know. So anyway, we come back over to the court about 9:30, and he brought me out a Zoom thing, a pad or whatever they call it. I'm not a nerd at all. I'm very much opposite of a nerd.
No, he's just a brute.
But yeah. So anyway, we sat there at from 9:30 till about 10:50. They finally called my name, and then we got on the Zoom, and about 5 minutes in, we started having technical difficulties. We couldn't hear each other, and it was breaking up real bad. And she says, well, I'm going to put you on, I'm going to take on some other cases until they get this technology straightened out, and then we'll come back to you. And I said, okay, that'll be all right. So she starts taking other cases, and we're sitting there waiting until, what?
We were there, before they actually took you, it was probably 3 hours. I think
Yeah.
I would say 3 hours.
It was at least 2.5 hours. Yeah.
It was about 3 hours.
So we waited another hour before they finally came back to me, and then we still had the problems. And so they said, well, can we do it over the phone? If they bring you a phone, can we just talk over the phone? Well, at least we'll be able to hear each other. So they brought me a phone, and I talked to somebody over the phone. I don't know if it was a judge or who it was, but I talked to somebody over the phone. We got through it, and they decided to reschedule my initial appearance until my preliminary hearing until it was May 5th, wasn't it? Yeah.
May 3rd. No.
No, it was April. It was April 5th. Yeah, because that was the 29th, and then they rescheduled me to April 5th. So I went back April 5th to the preliminary hearing.
Another one.
And we did another Zoom thing, which this time at least they set me in a bench out in the patio. It was right out in the wind again. cold wind and waiting for it. And then when we got on that one went pretty smooth, didn't it? Once we got going on it.
We were in and out of there.
We were in and out of there, and then finally got that preliminary hearing taken care of, and set my pre-trial hearing for May 3rd. At that preliminary hearing, I had requested an extension because I'd just gotten my discovery Friday, and this was Monday morning. I just got my discovery Friday, and I told the judge I needed more time because I just got my discovery Friday, late Friday. And he said, well, how much time do you need? And my wife looks over and goes, 30 days. And I go, okay, yeah, that sounds good. So I said 30 days, and he talked to the prosecutor attorney. He said that would be okay with him. So now I'm scheduled for my preliminary hearing on May 3rd, because that was April 5th, so that would be May 3rd, because it ended up only being 28 days instead of 30, which is good enough for me. So that's where we're at in that. You got anything you want to say, huh?
And that's what we call speedy trial, speedy due process, speedy whatever. What do we got? 180 days is what this speedy limit is?
A long time for any state.
Yeah, so it's a long time for any state to be 180 days, and we're just going to keep pushing it out and out and out. We'll let Margie talk for a sec, and co-parenting grandkids in the middle of all this? Are you kidding me?
I've been for 4 years. No, 8 years.
Yeah. He's only 7. I did want to say one thing, Casey forgot to mention, because he was pretty adamant that the judge come out and talk to him. He says, well, you're in there without a mask. Why can't I go in there and without a mask and talk to you? And then she, well, I don't know. I don't think I can do that. And then
I promised her I'd stay 10 feet from her. That was my first preliminary hearing.
And then he goes, well, then you come out here and you come out and talk to me. And he says, and then we won't have this technical issues. And she wouldn't have it, so she was rescheduled for his preliminary hearing.
Well, I gotta go.
Yeah, Garth was there, so he knows. He heard everything. But one thing that I want to say is that back, before August, I was sick and tired. I mean, March is when the governor exclaimed this emergency thing, whatever. And I was like, okay, well, there must be some kind of emergency. I've never been through anything like that. But then by June, I was sick and tired of it. I was actually getting depressed. I was so upset about it because you can't, first of all, we lost our businesses. We had 3 businesses. We lost them all. And I was like, this is crazy. Well, March through June, you can lose a lot of stuff, and I'm not talking about stuff. I'm talking about like just having morale. You're thinking, what's going on? This is not right. And then on Facebook, I'm talking to my family, right? I do a lot of communication with my family because we can't travel. You can't go anywhere. You can't meet with 10 people. It's crazy, right? So I had Facebook at least to talk to my sisters and family and things. And I see people's rights on Facebook. And I get to reading what people's rights is all about. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to sign my husband and I for that people's rights thing. Oh, absolutely. I said, this is what we got to do. I said, Lord, I know there's something really wrong with how this whole COVID thing is going on, right? And I said, no, it's just getting crazy. And so we joined, and I told my husband, guess what, honey, they're going to have a special, they were going to try to do a June special session, right? It didn't happen because there was only 15 legislators that showed up. You'd have to have 35 legislators show up. So then in August, they had it, right? And I was like, oh, honey, we gotta go. We gotta go testify against this, immunity. The governor's seeking immunity. I said, he needs to be found as a criminal, killing people and just, and when I say killing people, I mean like telling the people, you're banned from hydrochloroquine, you're banned from this and that, and it's like, no, this is wrong. I felt something in my heart that was wrong, right? And at this point in time, we had not really, and I'm really ashamed to say this, but I did not know the Constitution. I really didn't, and we were complacent, and we did not know all the bad stuff that was going on before all this came about. So I know personally I'm very ashamed. But then we went and we seen the atrocities that happened at the Capitol with Aaron, Ammon, Jill. I remember Jill, and I was like, and with many other the women, Bailey, Brian, Misty, and I was just standing up and I was yelling, freedom, liberty. I'm so upset, and my husband's trying to calm me. He's sitting there kind of like scared, and I'm scared too, but I'm more upset than scared. Okay, so that happened. And then I said, honey, we need to be more involved. And he goes, no, we can't be involved in politics. No. I'm not talking about politics, honey. I'm talking about people's rights. I'm talking about standing up for our rights, defending our rights. Oh, and he was struggling with that, right? Because we belong to a church that really don't think about political. We shouldn't be involved in politics. And I agree. But I said, this is different, honey. This is really different. And so I want to read something, and then this is the last thing I'm going to say, because I think what I'm going to read is going to have a huge impact on many of us, because this was written 176 years ago from a woman that I have a lot of respect for. Reading her biography, reading about many of her books. I think she wrote how many books, honey?
130-some books. She's translated into over 150 languages.
So that was quite. So and I read a lot of her books, child guidance, messages to young people, and things like that. But I want to read this real quick. Already, the question of an amendment to the Constitution restricting liberty of conscience has been urged upon the legislators of the nation. The question of enforcing Sunday observance has become one of national interest and importance. We well know what the result of this movement will be, but are we ready for the issue? Have we faithfully discharged the duty which God has committed to us of giving the people warning of the danger before them? It is our duty, as we see the signs of approaching peril, to arouse to action. Let none sit in calm expectation of the evil, comforting themselves with the belief that this work must go on because prophecy has foretold it, and that the Lord will shelter his people. We are not doing the will of God if we sit in quietude, doing nothing to preserve liberty of conscience. Fervent, effectual prayer should be ascending to heaven that this calamity may be deferred until we can accomplish the work which has so long been neglected. Let there be most earnest prayer, and then let us work in harmony with our prayers. It may appear that Satan is triumphant and that truth is overborne with falsehood and error. The people over whom God has spread his shield, and the country which has been an asylum for the conscious and oppressed servants of God and defenders of his truth, may be placed in jeopardy. But God would have us recall his dealings with his people in the past to save them from their enemies. He has always chosen extremities, and when there seemed no possible chance for deliverance from Satan's workings for the manifestation of his power, man's necessity is God's opportunity. It may be that a respite may yet be granted for God's people to awake and let their light shine. If the presence of 10 righteous persons would have saved the wicked cities of the plain, it is not possible that God will yet, in answer to the prayers of his people, hold in check the workings of those who are making void his law. Shall we not humble our hearts greatly before God, flee to the mercy seat, and plead with him to reveal his mighty power? If our people continue in the listless attitude in which they have been, God cannot pour upon them his spirit. They are unprepared to cooperate with him. They are not awake to the situation and do not realize the threatened danger. They should feel now, as never before, their need of vigilance and concerted action. The people need to be aroused in regard to the dangers of the present time. The watchmen are asleep. We are years behind. Let the chief watchmen feel the urgent necessity of taking heed to themselves, lest they lose the opportunities given them to see the dangers. And she's written a lot more than this, but that to me talks about, and this was written 176 years ago, this is so powerful. It's like we need to be awake. We need to awake and we need to fight for each other, fight for God's truth. And God gave us the liberties, the freedoms that we exercise today. He gave that to us, not the government. The government has no business being in our lives. God dictates what we eat, everything.
I would like to follow that up with just as one quick closing statement. Sunday worship is not now the mark of the beast. But when the deadly wound that occurred in 1798, when Berthier stormed the Vatican and took the Pope captive and he died in captivity, the union between church and state was ended. But when that deadly wound is healed and the United States joins with the papacy to enforce their dictates, then the mark of the beast will be enforced, and it will be decided who you worship. Will you worship God according to his loving commands, or will you worship man according to traditions of man worship? So that is something we all need to be aware of. And today is the day of salvation. We just experienced the loss of a very loved one that was intending to be our son-in-law, Mary, our daughter, and we lost him in a tragic accident about 1 mile east of New Plymouth. Greenleaf on Highway 19. He was hit on by a drunk driver doing 120 miles an hour. Come across the 3 lanes and hit him in the driver's front wheel, sent his truck spinning over, rolled over 4 or 5 times and killed him. But you never know when your time is up, but we need to be focused on our relationship with God and being ready every day to go home. God bless you all for being here, and thank you for your support.
Garth, you've got 7 minutes, and then you got to say the closing prayer.
You want to stand up again, stretch a little bit? I know it's been a long meeting. All right. I don't know. You can stand up.
You want all the state police to stay standing? Just all the state?
Yeah, just the state police this time. All right, so I'm an Idaho native. Grew up in Pocatello.
I'm sorry.
I get so kind of I love people's rights. Kind of my path to kind of waking up was started, of course, with Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ. And I grew up not knowing them. I was just all about having fun, skateboarding, playing music. But then I became very depressed. Kind of thought about suicide, but then I was like, wait a minute. If there's some hope and truth in the world, I want to find it. And so eventually I was led to the scriptures and pondered and prayed. And once I was, I guess, in a humble state, Heavenly Father sent the Holy Ghost and testified of Jesus Christ as the Savior of the world. And that totally changed my life, my whole view on life. I saw everyone then as a child of God with great value and great potential and a great purpose to be on this earth. So then I knew God's plan and how freedom is a big, important part of that plan. So I was in a church bookstore one day and saw this book, An Enemy Hath Done This, which is a quote from, I think, the book of Matthew. So I was curious, and the author was Ezra Taft Benson. And so I started reading that. He's got a little essay called The Proper Role of Government. And that just totally, I didn't really know what I thought about government. I didn't pay much attention to it. But when I read that, it just all clicked in my mind. And I knew it was true by the power of the Holy Ghost that it is the proper role of government to defend the God-given rights of each individual. And so, I also read other scriptures in a book called The Doctrine and Covenants, where Jesus Christ again reemphasizes this and says that these rights and privileges belong to all flesh. And he encourages his church to befriend the Constitution of the United States because of those principles in the Constitution. And the Declaration of Independence, when I feel the Spirit every time I read that paragraph about all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. And then it explains that to secure these rights, governments are instituted. I know that is true. And that is why I'm part of People's Rights. That is why I do what I do. I have all these people on the stage I know are good people, and all the other people I've dealt with in People's Rights have been wonderful people to get to know. I love this network. I got to know Casey and Margie as we heard about the couple and the other guy that were arrested in Moscow, Idaho, singing hymns in a parking lot. Like, yeah, when I heard about that, that's absolutely outrageous. So when Alicia said that we were going to carpool up there, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go. So I drove up with Margie and Alicia Peterson, and there was a bunch of other people that carpooled up there, and we went and protested in that parking lot. But I got to know the Bakers on the way there. They're just wonderful people. And this network are just people that care about each other. We're all concerned about what's going on, and we want to be there to help each other. Not only to defend our rights, but to learn everything we need to be prepared and self-sufficient. So we're not reliant on the government, as that seems to be part of the strategy, is to force reliance on them in order to get control. So it's just my heart, and I believe the Spirit of the Lord has drawn me into this group and into these activities that I've done. And so, I mean, going up against the government is people think it's crazy, and maybe it is, but yeah, when we were standing by Ammon, they started pushing us around. It is amazing that none of us got violent back, but I believe we're in the right trying to defend our neighbors from an attack, no matter who it is. So it's very troubling to see how the police, the politicians have been acting. How deceptive and abusive all of this is, how against the Constitution, the laws, and morality, it's wrong. And so I can't just stand by, I can't just ignore it. So it's the situation, I'm sure, stresses us all out. So I feel, I've never had military training or police experience, but now I'm like, do I have to actually train for combat? Am I gonna die today when I go to this protest? Why am I wearing this vest here and a gun on my hip?
You're next to me.
Because right now the government is after Ammon Bundy. They're still targeting him, so he went to the Capitol rightfully. You saw him tell his story, and now they got another warrant out for him. And I thought he might be here tonight, and so I didn't know if we're going to get ambushed or not, because they got something out for him. He's a peaceful, nonviolent man, as far as I've ever known him. He's been kind to me, everything I've seen from him has been kind and true. Just seems like a good guy. Anyway, so it's crazy going through this, and my family. It's like my wife is totally stressed out. Am I gonna get? What is the court gonna do with me? Am I gonna end up in jail for a long time? Are we gonna get some big fines? I don't know. Right now, it's not looking very hopeful. But so I'm the provider. My income is the income for my family. I've got a wife and 3 little kids. And to have these conversations, like, what if, okay, if I am captured or killed today, remember to trust in Heavenly Father.
Yes, sir. Amen.
Remember to look to the scriptures and believe that He will provide a way for you. I guess that's all I have to say.
I don't want to hold us up for the prayer, but that was amazingly moving, and thank you for that reminder. On that note, I can't help it. I'm feeling called. You guys might not know this about me. I know it's kind of odd, but in addition to video, I'm actually a health and wellness coach. And I feel like more and more every day I'm with all of you wonderful people. I realize I need to just be giving my service. I don't care what comes from it. The Lord always provides. So if those of you who saw the last rally we did, I started talking about this, but it's so important. The trauma that we're all experiencing from this can easily bring us into depths that we don't mean to. It can turn us against each other. It can make it really, really hard. So I want you guys to know, I will donate my time to anybody who needs to talk about what they're going through. Psychological, emotional, physical well-being. All of this stuff is the only thing that keeps me going, guys. I'll tell you what, the strength that can come from having somebody. The fellowship is amazing, don't get me wrong. We're all here, we're all family. But God has gifted me with the professional side of this, so I can actually help in ways that maybe you don't realize you need. But I will donate my time to anybody that needs to talk. Call me if you want my phone number. I'll be picking up equipment for like 2 hours, so you'll be able to spot me. I'll give you my number. And thank you again for that. I just wanted everybody to know that I know how hard this is and I can help if you need it.
Our Father in heaven, we love Thee. We thank You for Thy wonderful plan. We thank You for the trust You've given us and the guidance from heaven. We thank You for the scriptures. We thank You for Jesus Christ to show us an example and teach us the truth. We need Thy help. We pray that Thou would bless us with justice, help us act right, and especially give us the courage to do what is right. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Good job, guys.
That's all I had. That's all we had. You guys are free to go. Remember to sign up for training. If you're so inclined, there is at least one scholarship out there for anybody who'd like to go to home defense training. And thank you for putting up with another 3-hour-long people's rights meeting.
I know.
That's good. Where's the...
Probably should give you all a hug.
We've been set. Yeah, we'll do
And don't forget, we've got the donation box up here for the church and one for People's Rights that went around, I think.
You're like, why is this video so long? You're like,
Oh, I couldn't take it.
yeah. Oh, did you? Yeah. What you know what you could do? So,
I know.
well,
I don't have time.
yeah. You know, and all of it is mentioned that maybe you could take different images clips and then they can send to people that that they want to share it with or something like that.
Yeah, I'm one of the newsletter subscriptions, but I don't know if you have any spots available for like more upfront stuff, like streetwise.
Say like streetwise?
Streetwise, like rallies and stuff.
Oh yeah.
That front.
Oh yeah. Like you're saying, just for participation
and
being in that.
Yeah.
Now, are you in the text messaging system? So
I'm in the text messaging
so you
system.
get the alerts and everything.
I was the March 15th thing. I was out of town. I was flying from Boise to Seattle and Seattle to LAX, and wasn't there for that. But when I got back from a few days in Southern California, I did see what happened over the live stream. I was like, at that point, I was like, I need to start.
All right, guys.
Couldn't sit
So,
by it,
as far as like the protests in the near future, I think your best bet is
Everybody say hello to the future wife. Hi, Audrey. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Was that just killer or what?
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
I never got to hear the whole story from Aaron.
Oh, I know. That filled in some gaps, didn't it?
Yeah,
I didn't know it was that bad.
No, I mean, he just walked in there. Apparently, from what he was saying, it sounded like he wasn't even there when was it Cheney or whoever told everybody to leave.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't in there during that time.
Yeah.
He just came in afterward.
Oh, right. You know what? That's funny. The more I hear about that day, August 24th or 25th, the more I learn. It's weird. How we all got connected.
Totally clear, but that's what it sounded like.
Yeah. I thought you were talking about the jail, because I was like, every time I hear about the jail, I'm like, wow, there's more that they did? More corruption?
I didn't know that part of the reason that they wouldn't book them, they were freezing them out, was for not wearing masks.
I know.
I thought it was just because they wouldn't do a strip search.
Right. Oh.
And I'm like, well, that wouldn't happen to me because I do a strip search and I don't have anything against that.
She's like, I'll do it. Let it
like,
all.
I wouldn't wear a mask.
No.
So they would
No.
do that to me too.
Heck no. And that was really powerful what Casey was saying about how he started feeling the conscience of it. Oh, I would feel it immediately. That's why I'm so adamant about it. I'm like, I ain't covering my face.
Yeah.
Not for anyone. God made me this way, and I will never, ever second rate that. What a sweetheart. I'm going to go see who else wants to do a little talky talk. What's up, JJ? What's up, man? Say hi to the world.
No, thanks.
This is a wonderful gentleman here. He's got a lot of good knowledge. Helps us out in the offices of Patriots. Who do we got over here? Got lots of wonderful people. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I'm Brian, by the way.
Joe, good to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Joe. Thanks for being here, man. Wonderful Patriots all around.
Your mandate is
Well, I'm going to check out, guys. It's been a long night. And stay tuned. I will post the official version of that film so you guys can watch it with better sound quality and better visuals. I had to produce it so quickly that I'm aware that there were still a couple of mistakes in there. I will get those fixed and get it uploaded for you most likely tomorrow or sometime in the near future. Thanks for tuning in, guys. And remember, we must stand up. We must wake people up. I'm so thankful for every single one of you that has been supporting all of us all along the way. And yeah, God bless you guys. We're doing the right thing. And I'm so grateful to have all of you out there who know the truth, to stand by us. We are going to see a day that we all break bread together and we all share our love as family and with our freedom intact. So thanks again, guys. God bless you.